Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
We are live.
Yeah, we are live now. It's just a little late kicking in.
Oh, okay. Well, what do I know? My internet is, one cloud outside. My internet's orange red. So, yeah, let's get into this slate. I'm not going to be rushing through this slate, but I have my little guy sleeping. I'm home alone. I have to go pick up my medium sir after this. So, not going to rush, but we're gonna try to get out of here before 3 p.m. Let's get into this slate. Before we do, just wanted to say thank you again for all your support with the affiliate links, the affiliate signups, the liking of the show, just generally supporting us. It means a lot. And again, if you want to sign up, you can click the link in the chat. Use promo code Stochastic15, and that will get you 15% off your first month and year, first week or month for NHL. Man, I am struggling right now. Let's get into this slate. We are starting with the Columbus Blue Jackets with a 2.7 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 3.7 total. Boston egregiously opened at a minus 230 favorite. That has closed to minus 192. The disrespect for our Columbus Blue Jackets is egregious. We hate to see it. We hate that for you guys, but here we are. Because that line opened so wide, we do have a serious chalk line upon us. And honestly, we don't even know the Boston line. So, what I'm going to say for Boston is what I always say for Boston. A Pastrnak one-off is just fine, especially on this slate. I have no issues with the Pastrnak one-off. Currently in our top stacks, Pastrnak, Zacha, and Geeky, 16,100, 23% top two stack, 33.1% projected ownership. Like I know in a short sample, if it is Geeky up there, that line has been pretty good, but you need to show me more than just a 30-minute sample. I'm fine with the Pastrnak one-off. I don't want to stack that line at 33%, especially with some of these other totals and spots on this slate. So one-off Pastrnak, you want to do some sort of power play stack like Zacha, Pastrnak, Marchand, call it a day. That's fine if you want to play Boston, but I'm not particularly super happy about playing Boston here tonight. The Columbus side is a little bit more interesting. Did they go Monahan, Marchenko, Sillinger? Did they switch that in game?
So they did, but the coach spoke this morning and he said there's going to be some lineup changes. And one of the beat writers also noted that Cole Sillinger was taking faceoffs. So that would at least indicate that Sillinger is probably going to come in as the 2C. Don't know what the lines are going to look like. I assume it's pretty safe to say that Monahan and Marchenko are going to be together. After that, I think it's fairly wide open, and we're just going to kind of have to wait until warm-ups start.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not running out to play Columbus on this slate by any means, but Boston takes the most penalties per game in the league. I think a two-man Monahan Marchenko is completely fine here. They do share power play time. You want to throw in Werenski for a three-man power play stack, I think that's fine, but that's more of like a 20 max thing. I would imagine the Vegas line on this game tightens even more before lock, but reverse line movement in DFS, I don't really pay attention to it, except for maybe it sways a little bit of ownership off Boston. But again, I'm not full stacking Boston here. If anything, it's a Pastrnak one-off. And without knowing the Columbus lines, I'm fine with Monahan, Marchenko, Werenski.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I like Columbus again. I can't get away from the Blue Jackets, not with the way Marchenko and Monahan in particular have been playing. The notable thing about Marchenko and Monahan is that they've done it with a number of different wingers, right? They've done it with Chinnikov. They've done it a couple games with Fantilli. They've done it a few games with Cole Sillinger. It's like it doesn't matter who is playing with them. They're putting up pretty good offensive numbers. And overall this season, they're at 3.5 expected goals for per 60 in 210 minutes together, 3.5 actual goals per 60, shooting 9%. Like it's not like this is a line that's, riding a 19% shooting, looking at you, Washington. This is a line that is playing that is generating a lot of offense and is only slightly above average by finishing. So they've been really, really good offensively. I think Chinnikov goes back to the top line tonight. That's just kind of a guess for me. We'll see. Again, like I said, we'll see when warm-ups start. Maybe it's Voronkov back on the top line. If it's Chinnikov, it'd probably be perfectly correlated unless they change up their power play units. If it's Voronkov, it probably wouldn't be. But either way, you still get at least 2 out of the 3 guys on top power play unit. You mentioned that Boston is the most penalized team in the NHL this season. I looked earlier to see if maybe Boston had just taken a lot of penalties like in the first week or 2 of the season and had tapered off. Well, they're still the most penalized team in the league over the last 4 weeks. So not that Columbus's power play is anything special, but that Marchenko, Monahan, like if Voronkov is there, is only 14,700, right? If they can donk a power play goal, maybe they get one at even strength plus an empty netter, or maybe just 2 goals with a shot bonus or something like those are the types of things that can kind of work out when there's only a 6-game slate, or there's only 6 games tonight. Sorry. I like going back to Columbus one here. They're at least one of those lines that I'm considering in that mid-price range. Like there aren't like super expensive lines tonight, but there are expensive stacks you can make, obviously, with Colorado and Edmonton both on the board. There are some mid-price stacks that I think are going to come in with low ownership that I would kind of look to, and Columbus one is certainly one of them, especially with Hampus Lindholm still out for Boston. He's been Boston's best defenseman this year. It hasn't been Charlie McAvoy. It certainly hasn't been Nikita Zadorov. I do like the idea of going back to Columbus one. I'm not like confirmed going to play them or anything like that. I'm just saying they are in my mix for those lines in that like 14 to 16K range. And there are a bunch of them here tonight. I would probably leave the Columbus depth alone. I'm going to be honest. I was really high on Adam Fantilli coming into the season. He has not looked good. That's been kind of one of the sore spots for Columbus so far this season. If it's the second line is like Fantilli, Sillinger, X, doesn't really matter. Like I really wouldn't have a lot of interest. If you want to go back, we talk about Columbus 3, Danforth and Olivier. If they're together, if they're down on the third line, like a 2-man to go with expensive Colorado, expensive Edmonton, something like that, that's okay. But it's Columbus one that's drawing my interest. The Boston side, like Zacha, you do have to kind of hand it to them. Zacha and Pasternak, at the very least, have been creating well offensively together since they got away from Elias Lindholm, sorry. 2.9 expected goals per 60, 5 goals per 60, but shooting 17%. That's a little high. One thing I worry about with Pasternak, I'm writing about this elsewhere for tomorrow, is that something like 24% of his shots on goal this season have come from further than 45 feet from the net. Last season, it was about half that rate. Like he is taking a lot of long distance shots. So while his shot totals sometimes get up there pretty high, they're not really high quality ones. That kind of worries me, especially when you're looking at paying 8,800 on DK here tonight. But Columbus is not a great defensive team. I'd say they're about average. The penalty kill is about average. Boston's power play not great, but you still get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top line on the top power play unit. I just kind of agree with you. Like looking at this ownership, 33% top line, almost 10% on the second line, almost 5% on the third line. So you're looking at, if you're going to include like power play stacks and stuff, like nearly half of all the lines of all lineups tonight, give or take, are going to have some sort of Boston stack. That's one of those like, hey, Boston's still like 27th in the league by scoring. I feel fine fading them. You know what I mean? Like I have no problem playing Boston one here. Boston one would be the line that I would go to. I just think, just generally speaking, because the Bruins are going to be so chalky here tonight, I have no problem just kind of saying, like, you know, if you want a one-off pasta or something like that, then fine, or just moving along.
Yeah, my internet is still buffering. I'm in and out, so I apologize for my internet. I don't know what's wrong here, but we will work through it. Colorado Avalanche with a 3.6 total heading into Philadelphia. The Flyers have a 2.8. Colorado going McKinnon, Lehkonen, Johnny Drouin, Mikko Rantanen, Valeri Nichushkin, Casey Middlestat. As far as we know, the Flyers are going Konechny, Tippett, Couturier, Lawton, Farabee, Brink, Mitchkov, Richard. Now, assuming the Flyers keep these lines together, and with Torts, you just don't really know, you're going to see Couturier, excuse me, Couturier, Tippett, Konechny go out against McKinnon, Lehkonen, and Drouin. You know, that Couturier line has been pretty good defensively, nothing to, you know, write home about, but the point I'm getting to is Lawton, Farabee, and Brink have been pretty bad together in a smaller sample. It's not huge. It's around 60 minutes because, you know, Torts doesn't keep lines together. But that line's going to be going out against Mikko Rantanen, Valeri Nichushkin, Casey Middlestat. Now, I understand it's the most expensive line in the game, in this game at $20,400. You get Casey Middlestat and Mikko Rantanen on the top power play. Valeri Nichushkin was $7K his first game. He's down to $6K now. He's not on the top power play unit. But the biggest point is that is a very good 5-on-5 matchup, and it's Kolosov in net. If all the goalies were healthy and the Flyers had their choice of goalies, Kolosov would not be in the NHL. So this is, you know, a great matchup for Colorado here. If you want to go to McKinnon, Lehkonen, and Drouin, because you have a tough time fading McKinnon, I don't have a problem with it. They have 12.3% projected ownership, but this Mikko Rantanen, Nichushkin, Middlestat line, $1,100 more expensive, coming in at 2.4% projected ownership. That's the line I am looking at. Again, you want to go McKinnon, Lehkonen, no issue me. I want the little bit more expensive line in a better 5-on-5 matchup with less ownership. On the Flyer side, I think there is some merit to go to Couturier, Tippett, Konechny. It is Justice Denuin in net. Again, he has been their best goalie, and Colorado is getting healthier now, so it isn't the matchup it was, you know, a few weeks ago. But they are home. They have a top two stack, almost 15% with positive leverage, 7.3% projected ownership. I don't mind getting to some Flyers one here. I will consider them in Sanctuary. I don't think I'll get there, but in 20 max, I definitely have some.
So I'm going to start on the Colorado side. I want to talk about the top line, McKinnon, Lehkonen, and Drouin for a second. I'm interested to see how this goes for this reason, is that Jonathan Drouin is typically not much of a volume shooter. Lehkonen does shoot. He's not a high volume shooting guy, but he does shoot. Nathan McKinnon this season, I was looking at some of the tracking data so far this year. Overall, Nathan McKinnon's shot rate is down something like 20% from last year, shots per minute. Now, it wasn't a huge problem for most of the season because there's like a 3-week stretch there where you average like 24 to 25 minutes a game. And when you're playing that much, just having a high shot rate, not an elite one, just a high one, will give you a lot of shots on goal. But in that first game back with everybody in the lineup, he skated 22.06, which was his lowest total for a single game in 3 weeks. And if he's shooting 20% less, he also has the highest assist rate of his career. And I was looking at some of that tracking data, and he is passing the puck a lot more. His high danger passes is a 4-year high. I was looking at his assist on teammate scoring chances. It's also a 4-year high. So it seems like he's not shooting as much by choice, and he's turned into more of a playmaker. Now, not shooting as much is kind of put in air quotes there because with his shot rate and his ice time, you can still be like 3.5 shots per game, which is pretty high. But he's not the Nathan McKinnon of last year where you're you can basically bank on like 5 shots a game. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm interested to see if this changes at all with Lehkonen and Drouin, because, like I said, Lehkonen does shoot. He's not a volume shooter. Drouin doesn't shoot. He's the playmaker. So does Nathan MacKinnon change back, or does he keep this up? Like that's the kind of thing that worries me about stacking that line is like, are they just 3 playmakers now? Again, MacKinnon still shoots the puck. He's just not what it was last year or the year before. So that does kind of worry me. And I also agree with you that Rantanen and Nichushkin and Middlestat are in a pretty good matchup in that middle 6. Like, I'm not worried about those second and third line matchups from the Flyers, especially with Cam York still not back. This is a depleted defense group for Philadelphia, right? Like, Cam York is out. Emil Andre is out. Jamie Drysdale is out. That's half their blue line. Not that Drysdale was any good this year, but it's still half their blue line out. And after Travis Sanheim, like, it gets pretty thin pretty fast. I'm with you. I kind of like Colorado too here tonight. You get Rantanen, Nichushkin, Middlestat, 2.4% ownership. I know it feels kind of weird to stack Colorado and leave MacKinnon off. I do think this is a situation where you can do it. If I were to leave anybody off, it would be Nichushkin, obviously, because he's not on the power play. What I will say is that over the previous 3 years, Nichushkin was literally top 10 in the league by goals per minute on the power play. Like, I'm talking like Steven Stamkos territory. I'm wondering how long they keep Nichushkin off the power play. It seems to me like he's going to be the first guy back on, taking off Middlestat or something like that. Either way, I do like the matchups for Colorado too. I do like the ownership for Colorado too. The one thing I'm kind of running into is that, yes, they are pretty expensive. 20,400 to stack a Colorado line with Nathan MacKinnon. Like, it just feels bad. You know what I mean? But I do think it's a really good matchup. Colorado too. Rantanen and Nichushkin last year, I looked at their minutes without MacKinnon, 4.2 goals per 60. They'll get good minutes, especially the power play guys. So I do like Colorado too in this matchup. Philly's top line is interesting to me. Again, it's like you said, I have trouble trusting Torts here. He has tried to keep this line together at times. It hasn't lasted very long, obviously, but they're not coming in with much ownership, 7.3%. The top 2 stack is about twice as high. The line has been really good this year when they have been together. 3.4 expected goals for, 2.2 against. They're all in the top power play unit. The issue I'm kind of running into is that Colorado, over the last 4 weeks, I think they're taking the fewest penalties, second fewest penalties in the league. The only team lower is Vegas. So, like, Philly might only get a couple power plays here tonight, and the power play is not very good. So I think Philly 1 is fine, but for me, it'd be more 20 max at 150 than a single entry here tonight. For me, this is a Colorado game, and I like Colorado too.
Yeah, I like Colorado too as well. My internet doesn't like anything right now. I'm still working through it. I don't know what to do. I'll try another quick fix when I kick it back to Cliffy. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay, but let's get to the Edmonton game. Edmonton Oilers with a 3.9 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 2.5. We have a fresh top stacks run. So we will give you the most up-to-date data. Edmonton going 11-7 again tonight. Nurse is out after taking that hit from Ryan Reeves. Victor Arvidsson's still out. So same lineup, basically. Nurse is out. They called up Josh Brown. For me, this is simple. This is a great 5-on-5 spot. This is a great power play spot. Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Doc have been good defensively in their sample. It's just like, I don't know if they're going to be able to contain McDavid and Draisaitl all night. It's a 3.9 total. I like going something like McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins. You want to take a stab, on Hyman and hope that he breaks the walls down. I guess that's fine, but for me, it'd be like McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard. If you want to save some salary, you can put in Podkolzin and you can put in Perry, something like that, but I'm focusing on the power play guys. On the flip side, it is Calvin Pickard in net. he's actually been pretty good compared to Stewie Skinner. Stewie Skinner's had an up and down season so far. Again, like, I don't have a ton of interest in Suzuki, Slafkovsky, Doc. If they do get into my 150 mix, I'll leave them. But again, it's that situation where it's a little bit expensive. So, Montreal 1's fine in MME as a filler, but I'll one-off Cole Caulfield. I think that's fine as well, but I don't have a ton of interest in Montreal here.
Yeah. So I was looking at Edmonton's game on Saturday when, they had the similar 11-7 lineup. Obviously the top guys got all their minutes. Draisaitl skated 22 minutes. McDavid was almost at 25. Hyman and Nugent Hopkins both over 20. These guys are going to get a lot of ice time in this 11-7 setup, especially with Victor Arvidsson still out. It's not like they have a reliable second line that they can go to. It's just Leon Draisaitl, and then pretty much whoever's rested goes next. Like, I'm not sure that the depth guys are really going to get that much ice time. I think we're going to see another game where at least the four guys from the power play all skate like 21 to 25 minutes here tonight. That's why, for me, it's hard to get away from Edmonton because they are going to get a lot of usage here tonight. Montreal is still taking a fair number of penalties over the last month. They're at 3.4 times shorthanded per game. It is the fifth most in the league and the second most on this slate. Now, Edmonton's power play has not been good this year. And not only that, but Edmonton's not drawing a ton of power plays. Again, over the last month, they're at 2.6 power play opportunities per game. It's like sixth or seventh fewest in the league. Like, they're not getting a ton of opportunities, and the opportunities they do get, they're just wasting them. I do think the Montreal penalty kill is not that good. And like I said, the Habs do take a lot of penalties. And so, like, the Oilers really need 3 chances to get on the board here. Like, if they get 4 or 5 power plays, maybe, like, they can double down fairly easily. So I do like the Edmonton top line here. McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, 34% top 2 stack, 20% ownership, 21,100. But as you mentioned, Suzuki and Doc have been pretty good defensively. And that, that's just not me being a homer. In their time together, they're at 2.1 expected goals against per 60 minutes, or 2.2, expected goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. That's pretty good defense. And, Montreal, I was looking at their the last 4 weeks. Just in the last 4 weeks, they're 19th by expected goals against in the league, like just below league average. Like, they're not the team they had for about a month now. They haven't been the team that they were in the first 2 weeks of the season. So I don't think it's as good of a matchup as it was like a month ago, but it's hard not to love Edmonton here. Like, they're still generating a lot. They're at 4 expected goals per 60, 3.6 actual goals per 60. That's the thing, is like, they're scoring something like 40% higher than the league average, and their shooting percentage is basically league average. So, like, once that shooting percentage comes up, they're just going to start filling the net. I do like Edmonton 1 here quite a bit. I think I agree with you. You can take out Hyman, put in Draisaitl. I would like McDavid and Draisaitl are just going to play so many minutes that I don't know if I can leave them off a stack together. So I would just build around McDavid and Draisaitl and just kind of go from there. On the Montreal side, like, I do have a little bit of interest in Montreal 1 here. 1, as you mentioned, Pickard is starting. 2, like, they're not expensive, 13,700. So, like, it's not like this is an 18K Montreal line where you probably need 3 goals. Like, 2 goals from these guys, if one of them can get a shot bonus or something, that's probably enough for good value here tonight. So I do have a little bit of interest in Montreal 1. Probably nothing from the Montreal depth, like Caulfield and Evans. Caulfield and Evans so far this season, 48 shot attempts per 60 minutes. That's like Anaheim 4th line levels. It's definitely not what you want from a Cole Caulfield line. But if anything, it'd be Montreal 3. But for me, this is about both top lines, and specifically on the Edmonton side, I would build around McDavid and Draisaitl.
Anaheim Ducks with a 2.3 total heading into Dallas. The Stars have a 4.2 total, monster total there. Our very own Daily Deposit Frostback is going to be at the game, which means the Dallas money line is good until minus 10,000. Just slam that. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, like, massive favorite here. 4.2 total is probably the biggest we've seen. And they have 3 playable lines. So the line that I would have the least interest in is Robertson, Hintz, Dadonov. I don't have a ton of interest in Dadonov here. They're 14,000. They're the same price as the Johnston, Stankov, and Ben line. And I'd much rather play Johnston, Stankov, and Ben. Get Stankov and Ben on the top power play unit. Now, the other power play unit has been the better one. And this Wyatt Johnston line, 9.7% top 2 stack, 18.1% projected ownership, the highest projected owned Dallas line of the night. So just be aware if you are using them. The Dadonov line, 13.9% projected ownership. And then, I have no issue going back to Duchesne, Sagan, Marchman here. 15,400, 7.6% top 2 stack, 9.6% projected ownership. This is a great power play spot. This power play unit has been the better one. Duchesne, Sagan, and Marchman have been rolling at 5-on-5. So, my favorite Dallas line would be Duchesne, Sagan, Marchman. After that, it'd be Wyatt Johnston, Stankov, and Ben, and then Robertson, Hintz, Dadonov. The Ducks mix up their lines here. They have a 2.4 total, so I'm not super into playing the Ducks here, but I will tell you the lines. They are Leo Carlson with Zegras and Killorn, Frank Vetrano, Strome, Terry, and then Leeson, Lunderstrom, Cutter, Gauthier. If I'm going to go to a line here, it's going to be that Strome, Vetrano, Terry line. And that's an MME only type deal for me. Like, it's a good line. They've been a good line last year. Frank Vetrano had a great season. This is just a tough matchup. I don't want to, bank my night on a team with a 2.4 road total, especially where Dallas isn't even that much more expensive. You know what I mean? So this is a Dallas night through and through. It would be the Vetrano line, if anything, on the Ducks side.
Yeah, I really like the Duchesne line here. I agree with you on that. Those guys have just been really, really good so far this season. 3.3 expected goals, 3.6 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. You talked about the power play. That power play unit has been the better one. That Dallas second power play unit is taking over 150 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Like, that's area reserved for like Edmonton's power play last year type of stuff. Like, they are generating a ton on the power play, and Anaheim's penalty kill is not good. The only way Anaheim's penalty kill really has a chance game in and game out is if their goalies bail them out. Like, that's just been kind of the case all season. Now, I do worry because Anaheim does not take a lot of penalties. They're at 2.6 times shorthanded per game over the last month. Seventh fewest in the league. Dallas doesn't draw a ton of power plays, and they still do split the power play time. So, like, might only be 2 or 3 power plays. Maybe it's only like 2 or 3 minutes of ice time. It's not a ton. But this line's not getting priced up yet. There's, like you said, there's still 15,400, 7.6% top 2 stack, 9.6% ownership. Here's another thing. I was looking at some of the tracking data again that I mentioned earlier. It's tracked by a website called All Three Zones, and that Dallas line of Duchesne, Sagan, and Marchman, all 3 guys are over 60% of their zone entries being carried in. And the reason why that's important, we mentioned it on a show a couple of weeks ago, or maybe I mentioned in Discord, but generally speaking, teams generate a lot more shots and better quality shots when they have the puck on their stick when they go in the zone than rather than dump it in. That's just been the case in the NHL for like as far back as we've had these stats, which is like a decade now. And all 3 guys are way above the team average, and all 3 guys are way above the league average. This is a line that is basically firing on all cylinders. I went over the offensive numbers. They're all correlated together on the power play. I like the idea of going back to Dallas 2 here. No problem whatsoever. It's not even that they're riding hot. They're shooting under 10% as a line. That's not extreme. The league average is like 8.9% or something like that. Like it's for a line like this, considering how often they do have the puck on their stick, I think that's perfectly fine. So I like going back to Dallas too. Johnston, Stankoven, and Ben is kind of interesting. The reason why I don't really like them is because of the ownership. They are double the ownership of that Duchesne, Seguin, and Marchment line, nearly double, and they're not perfectly correlated. And this is a good power play spot. That's kind of the reason why I don't want to go back to Johnston, Stankoven, and Ben. They have been fine this year. I was just looking at their expected goals numbers, 2.74, 1.6 against. They've been better defensively than offensively, which kind of worries me. I like the idea of doing like Dallas 2 plus Wyatt Johnston, right? Like just completely stack that entire power play. Like I think that's perfectly fine on a slate like this. So I'm really into Dallas 2 here. They are one of those mid-price lines that I'm really looking at. On the Anaheim side, I do think both top lines are kind of in play. You mentioned Vetrano, Terry, and Strome. That Vetrano, Terry, and Strome line, 3.4 expected goals for per 60. They are generating a lot. They're not finishing a lot. Anaheim's lines typically don't finish a lot. That Zegras-Carlson line, not generating as much. Over the last couple of years, Zegras and Carlson only 2.4 expected goals. So I think I agree with you, just generally speaking, in this game. Duchesne, Seguin, and Marchment, easily my favorite line here. I do think some sort of Dallas power play stack, either power play unit, honestly, but especially that second unit makes a lot of sense here. Vetrano, Strome, Terry would be the line I would go to, especially with Casey DeSmith in net. Like it's not Jake Ottinger. I think that's kind of important here. Not that Casey DeSmith has had a bad season or anything. I think I was just checking now, he's at a 929 save percentage in 4 starts, five appearances. So like he has been good, but it's not Jake Ottinger. But yeah, this is a Dallas game through and through for me. I don't think I'd really have a ton of interest in Anaheim unless I was MMEing here tonight.
Yeah, the little homie is not too happy here, but it's okay. We move on. We have the Washington Capitals going into Utah to face the Soviet. Here you go. Washington's on a back-to-back. Logan Thompson started last night. It's going to be Charlie Lindgren tonight. Logan Thompson beat his old team, Vegas, scored a 30-burger on DK last night. Looks like Washington will probably run back their lines. Utah going Keller, Schmaltz, Bukestad, Genther, Cooley, Michelli, Hayton, Krause, Kerfoot. One thing I notice here is no one is playing Washington, and this is a pretty good matchup for them, both on the power play and at 5-on-5. Utah sends out their top line against the middle six, so one of these, Hayton line might go out against top competition, something like that. So you're going to see Wilson, McMichael, Dubois go out a fair bit against Genther, Cooley, Michelli. That line's good offensively, but they trade chances. So I'm kind of interested for 15,400 in Wilson, McMichael, Dubois. They've been the better 5-on-5 line for Washington. You get 2 of the guys on the top power play unit. And like I said, it's a good 5-on-5, good power play matchup. If you want to go to Ovechkin, Strome, Protas, that's a little bit more of MME for me. They have been running really hot. So I'll kick it to you for a second, see if I can calm the homie down.
Yeah, I'll take it. Here's the thing about Utah is that two things about this matchup. One, it is a good power play matchup for Washington. Utah is taking a fair number of penalties. So far on the season, they're in the top half of the league. That has gone down as the season has gone on. So they have been taking fewer penalties of late, but they're still at 3.1 times shorthanded per game over the last month. It's a little bit higher than league average. Washington's power play has not been very good. I know they have, I think that it's something like 2 goals in the last 4 games or whatever, but generally speaking, that Washington power play particularly the top unit, has not been good to start this season. Ovechkin, Strome, and Carlson on the ice. They're at 6.9 goals per 60 at 5-on-4. For a top power play unit, the league average is about 8.5. So the league average is 20% higher than what that Washington top unit is doing. The Washington power play is not good. So it's not a bad power play matchup, but it's not like Washington has a good power play. And this is not a good 5-on-5 matchup. I was looking at Utah's expected goals against numbers at 5-on-5. 2.3 expected goals against per 60. It's about 10% better than the league average. If you look at Utah's actual goals against at 5-on-5 this season, it's 2.16. They are 12th in the league. They have been better than teams like Boston, New Jersey, Washington among them. So like, I don't mind the Caps. I don't mind the Caps here. If I was to play anything, I agree with you. It's probably the Wilson, McMichael, Dubois line for a couple reasons. One, I think you could kind of call this the top line at this point. McMichael and Wilson have basically been the two most used forwards at even strength in the month of November. Obviously, they get power play time, all that good stuff. So they have been really good together at 5-on-5, 3.3 expected goals per 60, 4.7 actual goals per 60, shooting 12.7%, which is a little high, but I don't think it's nothing close to the top line. So, and like you mentioned, they're going to avoid that Bukestad-Keller matchup, and that Bukestad-Keller line has generally been fine defensively. So I do think Washington 2 would be the play here. The issue is that I'm running into is that they're in that price range with other lines that I think I would much rather play Dallas 2 than Washington 2 here tonight is one thing. I think Columbus 1, depending on who's on the top line, is certainly in play, and they're in that price range as well. So there's even a line in the next game we'll get to that I think is also in play. So like, I have no problem playing Washington here. I will note it is a road back-to-back, and it is their third road game in 4 nights. So maybe they are a little bit tired or something. If anything, I would go to Washington 2. I agree with you, but I don't have as much interest in the Caps as I normally do when they're this low owned. But yeah, if I'm not going to say don't play Washington, because they have generally been good this year. Like, they are riding hot, but they're also playing well offensively, and those two things can simultaneously exist because it is right now. So I do think Washington 2 is fine, but I'm not super gung-ho on them. On the Utah side, like, oh my God, I don't really have a ton of interest in. Yeah, I don't really have a ton of interest in the top line. Like Nick Bukestad, I think he only played like 12 or 13 minutes in their last game. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, 13:31. Nick Bukestad's last 3 games, all in the top line, 12 minutes, 13 and a half minutes. It's like, oh, great. Like I'm not going to build a DFS lineup around that. Like at 14,400, I would rather just go play Dallas. So I think Utah's top line is fine, mostly because they are going to go into the Washington top line. I do think that's a weaker defensive line, but not super high on them. I think it would be Utah 2, Genther, Cooley, Michelli. Genther is getting some good ice time, decent enough ice time, I should say. Cooley and Michelli, kind of the same. They're not generating a ton of quality, but they are. I do think a lot of it is because of playmaking. Like, it's kind of like that Montreal syndrome where they don't shoot a lot from inside 20 feet or whatever, but the shots that they do get are pretty good quality, like cross ice shots or cross, slot passes and stuff like that. So I do kind of like Utah too here tonight, and they are coming in with reasonable ownership, under 7%, only 3.2% top 2 stack, but that's reasonable enough. I do think that they're a nice filler stack to put with your Colorados and your Edmontons, but I'm going to be honest, despite the totals here, we're looking at a 6.5 total. I don't have a ton of interest in stacking this game in single entry. I think for me, I'd have a lot more interest in this game if I had 20 lineups or 150 lineups or something.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's a 6.5 total, but there is a ton of massive totals on the slate, so it makes sense. The little fella has calmed down a little bit. You going to say hi? There you go. Detroit Red Wings with a 3.2 total. Heading into San Jose, the Sharks have a 2.8. Are these lines in the top stacks correct? Like I went to try to clarify them and I couldn't find them. Larkin, Raymond, Tarasenko, DeBrincat, Kane, Confer.
That's a good question. I'm gonna go look because San Jose just hit the ice for their morning skate. So you just
I couldn't find
the intro and I'll keep looking.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure how to react to these lines because they are both priced in the 15,000s. You get two guys on the top power play unit, Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, Kane. This is a good power play spot. I don't particularly love them from 5-on-5. Like Tarasenko at this stage of his career for DFS is kind of just a name. Go ahead. Oh. DeBrincat, Kane, Confer. Like I don't particularly love the makeup of that line. So if these are the Detroit lines, I think I'd do some sort of power play stack and just call it a day.
Yeah, just to cut you off, I don't like. I legit don't know where those lines are coming from because they changed up.
Okay, because
they left Larkin, Raymond, and DeBrincat together basically the entire game last game. They changed up the second and third lines, but they moved Casper with Patrick Kane, I believe, and then Andrew Kopp and JT Confer got a new line mate. Patrick Kane was moved off that line. So Detroit's going through their morning skate in a little bit. If we see anything, we'll post it in the Discord.
Yeah, I feel like that might have been a mistake from the coding end because everywhere I look is still Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat. Either way, that doesn't really change the analysis for me. If they're together, great. If not, I'll still do some sort of power play stack. This is a very, very good power play spot. So that is where I'd be on the Detroit side. On the Sharks side, I do have interest in Granlund, Zetterlund, Eklund at 14.8. But again, like it's hard to prioritize them when you have the Dallas second line at 15.2. You know what I mean? So I think they're fine in 20 max. I'll probably just – it's hard for me to get there when I can play multiple Dallas lines in that price range. Toffoli as a one-off I think is interesting because Detroit isn't very good defensively. They don't have a great PK. Toffoli's still on that top unit. So I think like a cheap two-man of Wenberg, Toffoli is completely fine. I won't say no to a Celebrini one-off, but the line on the Sharks that I have the most interest in is Granlund, Zetterlund, Eklund.
Yeah, like Goodrow, Celebrini, Will Smith, that just screams a line that is A, going to get broken up this game, and B, is – I don't want to say they're going to get obliterated because it's not like the Detroit depth is very good, but that line is just not going to be good. Yeah, if you want to go down to Wenberg, Toffoli, I think that's the point. Like Toffoli, even though we're high on Celebrini, I think Toffoli is still considered the team's top goal scorer. For me, it's the Granlund, Eklund, Zetterlund line. Like I don't think it's particularly close. I really do. I actually just like that line generally speaking here tonight. They're at 14,800, 7.2% top two stack, 8.3% ownership. This is one of those mid-price lines that I like here tonight. Detroit, whether at 5-on-5 or on the penalty kill, nothing really concerns me. Like Detroit legit has one of the worst penalty kills in the league. That's just not hyperbole. They're giving up the second most shots per minute on the PK, and they're giving up the second most goals per minute on the PK. This is a really good power play spot for San Jose. Assuming that they go back with the same power play units that they had in the last game, then that San Jose line is going to be perfectly correlated on the second unit. I think it's a really good matchup for him. I really like that San Jose top line here tonight going up against Detroit. There's nothing that concerns me matchup-wise on the Detroit side. For Detroit, assuming that it's Larkin, DeBrincat, and Raymond, I think they're playable. Here's one thing I will say. I mentioned this on social media yesterday. With Jake Wallman on the ice for the Sharks at 5-on-5, they're at 52% expected goal share, 55% goal share. With him off the ice, they're at 37% expected goal share, 33% actual goal share. This team is legit night and day when Wallman is on or off the ice. Like, we'll see how they match up here tonight. I imagine Wallman goes out against the top line for Detroit. That doesn't really excite me that much. I think Detroit very much in play here. Sorry, I'll bring up top stack. So I think Detroit very much in play here, but for me, this is a San Jose game. I think Josh had some other things he had to go take care of. So that is the 6-game slate here tonight. For defensemen, I'll start off with the expensive guys. Obviously, Cale Makar still at the top of the board for projections here, but he is the most expensive. But yes, he's at the top of the board. Zach Werenski is right behind him, and then Evan Bouchard. I have those flip-flopped in my personal projections. I have Bouchard second, Werenski third, but they're all pretty much neck and neck. I think it's just basically a case of how much salary do you have left in your lineup. Mid-price range, with Hampus Lindholm out, I think going back to Charlie McAvoy is perfectly fine. Certainly Miro Heiskanen at home for Dallas. Our chat mentioned, Kevin Peterson mentioned Travis Sanheim. Like that guy's just been playing a ton of minutes lately, and he's been doing well in those minutes. So yeah, I agree with Kevin. I think Travis Sanheim certainly in play here tonight. Jake Wallman revenge narrative. I don't really buy into revenge narratives, but I do buy into the fact that Wallman gets a ton of ice time. He helps drive the play. It's a good matchup, and he shoots a lot. So yes, I do like Jake Wallman as well. Cheap guys, Dante Fabro, he's been getting decent minutes for his price for Columbus. I think he's okay. With all of Philly's injuries, Egor Zamulo's running the top power play unit for whatever's that's worth. He's fairly cheap. Mason Lowry has been getting more ice time with Hampus Lindholm out. So I think Lowry is in play if you need a cheap defenseman for Boston. Brian Dumoulin, as long as he plays for Anaheim, probably going to have to block a lot of shots here tonight. And yes, Ilya Lyubushkin, not bad here for Dallas. Really good matchup. Also, I was looking into Lyubushkin's tracking data. He's actually had some good puck moving numbers early in the season, which is something he usually doesn't do. So, beware the small sample, but maybe he's trying to add a different dimension to his game. For a little bit more expensive amongst defensemen, Timothy Liljegren, I think certainly in play here. Esa Lindell, like all the Dallas Stars defensemen are in play. Pavel Mintyukov, as long as he's in Anaheim's lineup, I think he's certainly viable here tonight, getting about 20 minutes. Devin Taves for Colorado with his ice time, he's fine. With Darnell Nurse out, I'm interested to see how the minutes go here for Edmonton. Brett Kulak is kind of interesting to me at 3,300. I don't know how many minutes he get. He got 21 in the last game when Nurse got hurt. I don't know if he gets that again here tonight, but I think Brett Kulak for 3,300 is fine. It looks like Simon Evanson is going to play tonight for Detroit. Evanson had been kind of like a game time decision for Detroit, but it looks like he's going to be back. So there's not a ton of like Detroit depth guys that I like, but just watch for warmups just in case they do decide to pull Evanson out. In net, oh boy, this is quite the goalie slate because you just have a ton of goalies that are big favorites here tonight. If you want to go and use one of the favorites, like go right ahead. Like I have nothing against going to a Calvin Pickard or a Justice Annunen or Casey DeSmith or something like that. The two goalies that stood out to me were Jeremy Swayman. And if we get some sort of confirmation that Cam Talbot goes tonight, I haven't seen anything one way or another for Detroit. But if it's Cam Talbot for Detroit, I don't mind him against San Jose. Jeremy Swayman is the guy that kind of caught my eye here. He's projecting well, 13.4 DK points at 8,200. Charlie Lindgren would be the other guy. He's not projecting super well, but I have a feeling that if Washington wins that game tonight, it's not going to be like a 7-5 win or something like that. It would end up being a low-scoring affair. So Lindgren's not a huge target of mine, but I do think he's certainly in play if you need a cheaper goalie than paying up all the way, into the eights for a DeSmith or a Swayman or something like that. My hat trick pick is, I think he was one of the 3 stars in the NHL last week. I am going to go to Dallas, going to go with a little bit of the chalk, going to go to one of the guys that has been a key offensive player for them so far this season, and I'm going with Mason Marchment. All right. That is the 6-game slate for today. We will be back tomorrow at same time, 2:00. Going to be back Wednesday and Thursday as well. A little bit of a bigger slate tomorrow, but that'll do it for today. So for Josh will be back tomorrow, obviously. Slim Cliffy saying good luck and good luck tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow.